My daughter-in-law kicked me out of the house the day after my son died, treating me like I was nothing. But when the lawyer finally read my son's will, a secret he had been hiding for years came to light, and in that moment, everything changed forever, not just for her, but for me, for our family, and for the truth he left behind. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, because when you stop doing this, YouTube understands that you don't like this content and stops recommending good stories like this. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. The call came at 3:17 a.m. and changed everything. I was asleep, and the ring cut through the dark room like a sharp line. I saw the time, knew nothing good lived at that hour, and answered with my voice still cracked. A calm stranger said David's name, said hospital, said to come now. I asked what happened. They would not say, only that I should hurry. My hands shook while I pulled on the first clothes I found. I took the keys, missed the handle, tried again, and stepped into the cold hall. The street was empty. My car felt too small for the fear filling it. I drove without music, without thought, just the road lights sliding over the hood and my breathing getting louder. Every red light felt wrong, like the world did not understand. When I reached the hospital doors, the glass opened with a slow hiss. The desk worker looked up, heard my name, and pointed me down a bright corridor. The floor shined in a way that made my eyes hurt. I walked fast, then ran, then stopped because a doctor stepped into my path with a careful face. He asked if I was. He led me into a small room and closed the door with slow hands. He said my name first, as if setting a soft ground under a hard truth. He told me David felt a sudden pain in his chest, that the team moved fast, that they did all they could. His words lined up, careful, but they floated far away from me like I was hearing them underwater. When he said it was a massive heart attack, something in me went quiet. I kept waiting for a clause that would open a door back to before, a sentence like he is stable now, but it never came. I nodded like I understood and stared at the seam in the wall paint. He asked if there was someone I could call. I tried to speak, and only air came out. Time stopped working right. I do not know how long I sat there with hands in my lap. Someone brought water. I did not drink it. I asked to see him, even if it was too late. They guided me past curtains and carts to a room where the light was too clean, and I saw my son still. The funeral came fast, like the week had no edges. People filled the room with low voices and careful steps. I focused on breathing in and out so my chest would not lock. Flowers stood in clusters, and every card used the same words. I kept my eyes on the casket and then on Stephanie because it was easier than meeting every sad face. She stood beside me and greeted each person with a nod and a thank you. Her hands did not shake. Her hair was neat. Her voice did not crack. It looked almost practiced, as if she had drawn a map for this day and was walking it line by line. I told myself that order can be a way to survive, that everyone grieves in their own way. Even so, when I caught her gaze, it was steady and felt cold, like a door shut from inside. She did not cry. She moved to the next person, the next embrace, the next phrase, and kept going. I stood still. The priest spoke. I tried to follow his words, and failed. In my head, I counted breaths because counting gave me something I could control. After the burial, I went home to the house we shared. The air inside felt used up, like someone had taken the oxygen and left only weight. I stood in the doorway of the living room and let my eyes travel over the shelves the way I always did. Books, a vase, a bowl for keys. Then my mind hit a blank space I could not name. I stepped closer. The frames were there, but the pictures were not the same. The most recent photos of David and me were missing. The ones from his birthday, from the day we fixed the fence, from a recent Sunday. Older photos remained, but our new ones had vanished. At first I thought maybe someone moved them to avoid pain. That idea felt tidy, and I tried to accept it. I opened drawers, checked the cabinet under the TV, and the box where we keep holiday lights. I did not find them. The two frames that used to hold our latest smiles now held other images. A beach from years ago, a distant family trip. I felt a new kind of fear, thin and sharp, slide under my ribs. No one had asked. I told myself to think straight. Maybe the frames had fallen and someone tucked the photos away. Maybe the funeral home had borrowed them for a display. Maybe I was tired and mixing days. But the more I stood there, the less those ideas fit. I did not say anything to Stephanie that night. I decided to watch and wait because my words felt breakable. She moved through the rooms with steps and kept to herself. When I asked if she wanted tea, she said she was exhausted and went to the bedroom, closing the door until it clicked. I cleaned the counter, turned off lights, and listened to the house settle. In bed, I stared at the ceiling and tried to replay the layout of the shelves from memory. I could see the missing images with my mind like ghost squares. I kept hearing the doctor's tone, the lift and drop of it. Then the memory of Stephanie at the funeral returned, the set of her shoulders, the control in her face. I wanted to believe her silence was grief and nothing else. I wanted to be wrong about the cold look. I wanted to sleep and could not. In the days that followed, the house looked the same, but felt different. Chairs, curtains, the dent in the sofa where David sat stayed in place, yet the rooms seemed to hold their breath. Stephanie kept a schedule. She woke early, showered, and spoke only when needed. When I mentioned David, she nodded and changed the subject. At meals, she ate a few bites and left. I tried again to ask about the photos, and she said she did not know, then looked past me as if searching a wall for answers. I told myself to let it go for a day. That afternoon, I walked the hallway and opened the hall closet, the linen drawer, and a box. I checked the recycle bin and the small basket for mail. Nothing. The house gave me no reason, no trail to follow. I stood in the living room and looked at the empty spaces on the shelf, the way a missing tooth changes a face. I felt love for my son rise so fast it made me dizzy. I pressed my hand on the shelf edge and steadied my breath. In that moment, I felt the loss would not end there. The day after the funeral, Stephanie called me into the living room, the way someone calls a person to hear something already decided. She didn't ask if I was feeling better, or if I had slept, or if I needed anything. She just stood in front of me with her arms crossed and said she needed to talk about the house. Her tone was firm, like she had practiced the words and was now repeating them the same way every time in her head. I sat down, already with a bad feeling in my stomach, and waited for her to continue. She didn't hesitate. She said she needed space. She said she needed to rebuild her life without complications. And then she looked right at me and told me I had to move out by the next day. Not in a week, not in a month, the next day. I stared at her, thinking I had heard wrong, but she didn't change her expression. I tried to remind her that this was also my house, that I had been living there since David and she got married, that I had nowhere planned to go, but she didn't flinch. She simply repeated that it was better for both of us. There was no sadness in her words, no hesitation, no sign of guilt, only a cold certainty that felt like a slap. I wanted to argue, to say something sharp, to ask her how she could do that after everything, but my voice got stuck in my throat. I felt like I was losing a fight I didn't even know I was in. Instead of exploding, I just nodded slowly, because I didn't have the strength for anything else. I walked to my room and stood there for a long time before I could make myself move. The air felt heavy, like the walls were closing in, and every object I looked at seemed to ask me how I could leave so easily. I took a deep breath and started folding clothes, putting them in suitcases and boxes the best way I could. I didn't even know where I was going yet, but I packed anyway, because I knew arguing would not change a thing. While I packed, I heard her walking around the house, opening and closing doors like someone checking a place they had already claimed. I found myself staring at the bed, the dresser, the curtains I had chosen years ago, and I felt like I was erasing myself from a place that still had my fingerprints everywhere. There was no kindness, no shared grief, no take your time, only a deadline. Every time I passed through the hallway, I noticed something else missing. A frame I used to dust every week wasn't there anymore. The painting David once insisted on buying during a trip was gone. I checked the walls again, and more things had either been taken down or moved. It was like the house was being rewritten, piece by piece, and I was the part being deleted. The living room looked cleaner, but not in a comforting way. More like a stage being prepared for a different performance, one where I was not allowed to appear. I sat on the edge of my half-empty bed and tried to understand how Stephanie could live with me for years, smile at me during dinners, call me family, and now speak to me as if I were a stranger who had overstayed a visit. I wanted to believe this was grief twisting everything, but her face didn't look broken. It looked determined, cold, almost relieved. At one point, I heard her laugh on the phone in the kitchen, talking to someone about finally organizing things. That laugh felt louder than anything else that day. I kept folding clothes, even though my hands were shaking and I could barely see through the blur in my eyes. When I finished packing the last suitcase, I looked around my room and it no longer felt like mine. The bed with no blanket, the shelves without my books, the nightstand without the photo of David and me at the beach, everything looked like a room waiting for a new tenant, not a mother who had lived there through birthdays, holidays, and ordinary mornings. I dragged the suitcases to the door one by one. Stephanie didn't ask if I needed help. She just stood in the hallway, watching, like someone supervising a quiet eviction. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say, "Take care." She didn't even look sad. She only said, "Please leave the keys on the counter when you go," like I was someone who had rented a space and reached the end of the contract. I stared at her for a second, searching for something human in her expression, something that felt like we had once shared the same table. But there was nothing. I put the keys down. The sound they made on the counter felt like a door closing forever. I walked outside, pulled the suitcases to the car, and loaded them into the trunk one by one. The house looked the same from the outside. Same curtains, same garden David once trimmed, but it no longer belonged to me in any way. I sat in the driver's seat and didn't move. I stared at my hands on the wheel and tried to understand how, in less than 48 hours, I had lost not only my son, but also the one place where memories of him lived. There was no home waiting for me, no family gathering, no one calling to check if I was okay. I drove without knowing exactly where to go, just needing distance, because every street felt like a reminder. I finally stopped at a small hotel, the kind with a front desk that doesn't ask questions. I checked in, carried my things to the room, and when the door closed behind me, I sat on the bed and felt the silence hit all at once. I wasn't just grieving my son. I was grieving the life I had before that call at 3:17 a.m., a life that had been erased piece by piece until all that was left was a room I paid for by the night and a future I no longer recognized. 2 weeks later, I received a call I was not expecting. I was in the small hotel room, sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to decide if I should go out or stay in another day doing nothing, when the phone rang. I almost didn't answer because the number was unfamiliar, but something told me to pick it up. A man introduced himself as David's lawyer, speaking in a formal tone, and said there would be an official reading of the will. He told me my presence was required and gave me the date, time, and address of the office. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I thought it was a mistake. Stephanie had always been clear when she said everything belonged to her, and I had believed her because I didn't imagine David leaving anything for me. I asked the lawyer if there was a reason I needed to be there, and he simply said, "Yes, it is necessary," like he couldn't say more on the phone. I hung up feeling confused, nervous, and strangely alert, like a door I thought was locked forever had been opened a bit. I didn't tell anyone about the call. I just waited for the day to arrive, trying not to create expectations, but failing every time my mind replayed the lawyer's tone. When the day came, I drove to the office slowly, unsure of what I was walking into. The building was clean and quiet, the kind with white walls and glass doors that make everything look serious. I sat in the waiting room, trying to stay calm, when Stephanie walked in. She wasn't alone. Beside her was her brother, someone I had seen only a few times at family gatherings. He seemed relaxed, hands in his pockets, like he was there just for support. Stephanie, on the other hand, looked confident, almost in control, as if she already knew the ending of the story. She didn't greet me, didn't sit near me, didn't even pretend to be polite. She just gave me a quick glance, one that said she wasn't worried about my presence at all. For a moment, I wondered if coming was pointless, if maybe the lawyer had only called me because the law required it. But something in my gut told me to stay and listen, no matter how uncomfortable the room felt. When the assistant called us in, I stood up and followed them, breathing slow, preparing myself for whatever I was about to hear. The lawyer sat behind his desk, expression calm, hands folded, like he had done this many times before. He asked us to sit, opened a folder, and began reading the will out loud. His voice was steady, almost emotionless. First, he listed Stephanie as the heir to the house, then the cars, then the life insurance, then the bank accounts. None of it surprised me. Those were things I already knew, things she had already acted like she owned from the beginning. Stephanie didn't react because she had clearly expected every word. She even leaned back a little in her chair, like she was settling in comfortably. I could feel my heart beating faster, not out of hope, but out of the painful confirmation that I really had been erased from everything. Then the lawyer turned a page, paused, and said, "There is an additional clause." His tone changed slightly, and so did the air in the room. Stephanie's face, still confident, slowly shifted as she leaned forward, waiting. The lawyer continued. David had left something specifically, and only for me, an item not connected to the inheritance Stephanie was receiving. A bank-safe deposit box registered in his name, but designated to transfer solely to me upon his death. A private asset no one else knew about. The lawyer read the details clearly. I was the only authorized person, and the key would be handed to me after the reading, along with an envelope David wrote himself. The moment he said my name, I watched Stephanie's face break. She wasn't calm anymore. Her eyes widened, her jaw tensed, and she looked at her brother with a mix of shock and anger. It was like she had just been pushed off a step she didn't know was there. She opened her mouth as if to interrupt, but the lawyer kept reading, not giving her a chance to speak. I didn't smile. I didn't move. I just felt a strange chill run through me. Not happiness, not revenge, just the heavy realization that David had planned something without telling anyone, not even her. When the reading was over, the lawyer handed me a small metal key attached to a tag with a number on it, and an envelope sealed in David's handwriting. I held both in my hands, not sure what to feel. Stephanie didn't say anything while we stood up, but the look she gave me was enough to make it clear she was not expecting this. Not even a little. Her certainty had cracked, and beneath it was something close to panic, something sharp and unsettled. I didn't look at her again. I thanked the lawyer politely, walked out, and didn't stop until I reached my car. I sat there for a minute, just breathing, staring at the key in my palm. It felt heavier than it should, like it wasn't just metal, but a door to answers I wasn't sure I was ready for. I thought about David, why he hid this, why he trusted only me with it, why he didn't tell me. The doubts burned inside me, one after another. What exactly had my son prepared, and why did he think I would need it? I didn't have the answer yet. All I had was a key, a sealed envelope, and a new piece of a story that was just starting to reveal itself. At the bank, opening that safe deposit box felt like opening a wound and a cure at the same time. I sat in a small private room while the employee placed the box on the table and left me alone. My hands were shaking before I even touched it. I stared at the metal lid for a long moment, knowing that whatever was inside would change something in me, even if I wasn't sure how yet. When I finally lifted the cover, the first thing I saw was an envelope with my name written in David's handwriting. The sight of it hit me harder than I expected. I took a deep breath, opened it carefully, and unfolded the letter inside. It was written by hand, every line steady and clear, like he wanted to make sure I understood every word. He said he knew how Stephanie treated me when he wasn't around, that he had seen things I didn't know he saw. He apologized for not acting sooner, said he was trying to protect me quietly because confronting her would have made everything worse. He told me this wasn't just money or documents. This was his way of making sure I would never depend on anyone who wished me harm. I had to stop reading for a moment because my eyes were full of tears I didn't even notice forming. Next to the letter was a folder filled with documents. I opened it slowly, expecting to find something simple, but instead I found proof, organized, clear, and painful. There were printed messages between Stephanie and people I didn't even know, where she mocked me, complained about me, even bragged about how easy it was to make me feel useless. There were emails talking about money, about how she planned to take over everything once David was gone, as if she had already imagined the ending. I kept reading even though every sentence hurt. I found screenshots, printed bank statements, even dates and notes written by David himself, like he had been building a puzzle piece by piece. He hadn't just suspected her, he had confirmed it, saved it, and hidden it here, waiting for the day I would need it. I felt angry, sad, and proud all at once. Angry because I never knew how deep the manipulation went. Sad because David carried that weight alone. Proud because even knowing all of this, he still chose to protect me instead of turning cold like her. Then I saw something else, a page with financial information and my name typed at the top. It was related to the $40,000 I had given them years ago when they bought the house. I had told them it was a gift, something to help them start a stable life. I thought the money was gone, spent, buried in mortgage payments. But David had taken it and invested it under my name without telling me. I checked the numbers twice just to make sure I wasn't reading wrong. What had once been $40,000 had turned into $185,000 over 5 years. He left a note attached that said, "This is yours. I just kept it safe." I had to sit back and breathe because the feeling was too big to fit inside me. He didn't just love me. He planned for me. He thought ahead, prepared, made sure that even if I lost him, I wouldn't lose everything. I never imagined he did something like that in silence, without asking for thanks, without even hinting at it. It was the kind of love that didn't need attention. It just needed to work. I went through the rest of the documents slowly, trying to understand the order of things. David had organized everything like someone who expected no second chance to explain. He left instructions, numbers, passwords, account details. He even listed the contact of the financial manager who handled the investment so I wouldn't have to deal with it alone. The more I read, the more real it became. My son had prepared for his own absence. Not because he knew he was going to die, but because he knew life was unpredictable and Stephanie could not be trusted. He didn't want her to control me, not emotionally, not financially, not legally. He didn't want her to win. And most of all, he wanted me to know the truth, not her version of it. Not the one she performed in public, but the one she lived when she thought no one was watching. I held the papers in my hands and felt the weight of his silence all those years. He had seen everything. He had understood everything. And now he was telling me, in the only way he still could. When I finished looking through everything, I closed the box slowly and sat there in the quiet room. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't confused or afraid the way I had been when I walked in. I felt something stronger. I felt the certainty that David never abandoned me, not even in death. He had protected me the way I always tried to protect him. I wiped my face and looked at the key again, knowing it wasn't just metal. It was proof that he trusted me, believed in me, and wanted me to stand on my own without being hurt again. I walked out of the bank with the documents tucked safely in my bag, and for the first time since he died, I didn't feel lost. I didn't have all the answers yet, but I had the truth. And I had what he left for me. Not just money or files, but the knowledge that my son never turned his back on me, not for a second. In that moment, I understood without any doubt, my son protected me until the very end. I decided to meet with Stephanie for one final conversation, not to make peace, but to close what was left between us. I called her and asked if we could talk in person, and she agreed quickly, almost too quickly, as if she had been waiting for the opportunity. When I arrived, she opened the door with a wide smile that looked practiced, like something she had rehearsed in front of a mirror. Her voice was soft, her tone almost sweet, nothing like the coldness I had seen after the funeral. She asked how I was, pretended to show concern, and even offered me coffee, which she never did before. I sat down and watched her move around the room, acting like a friendly hostess, but every part of me knew it was fake. She didn't mention David, didn't mention the past weeks, only said things like, "Maybe we can fix everything," and "I think we both deserve calm now." I stayed quiet, letting her play her role, because I knew very soon she would drop the act, and she did. After a few minutes, she leaned forward and asked, with a smile too tight to be real, "So, what exactly did you find in that safe?" That was the real reason for the invitation. She didn't even try to hide her curiosity. She said she assumed David left some money and that it would be fair if we divided things, since we were both important parts of his life. I let her talk, let her explain how she was willing to help me use the money wisely, like I couldn't handle it alone. Her confidence was almost insulting. She was certain she still had control, certain I would be confused or unsure, just like before. That was the moment I opened my bag and placed the first set of printed messages in front of her. At first, she frowned, not understanding. Then she read the first sentence, where she had written to a friend that I was a dead weight, that she was counting the days until she could push me out of the house. She went pale, but I didn't stop. I spread more papers across the table, conversations where she planned to make David feel guilty until he agreed to put the house in only her name. Notes where she calculated how much she could save once I was gone. Even a message where she joked about how easy I was to manipulate with fake kindness. Watching her face shift from confusion to shock was like watching a curtain fall. She tried to deny everything at first, said the messages were fake, said someone must have changed them, said I was misunderstanding her humor. But I didn't move, didn't raise my voice, didn't argue. I just kept placing document after document in front of her. Printed emails, bank screenshots, and even David's own handwritten notes, where he explained how long he had been collecting proof. When she realized excuses wouldn't work, her expression changed again. The shock turned to fear. She asked how I got those things, what else I knew, whether I planned to go to court. I didn't answer. I just said David knew what she was doing long before I did, and that he prepared for all of it. Then I told her the real amount he left for me. Not $40,000, not a small deposit, but $185,000 under my name, untouched by her, protected from her. Her mouth opened, then closed. She didn't blink. For the first time since I met her, she looked afraid of me, not because I was dangerous, but because she no longer had power over me. After a moment, she tried a new approach. She softened her voice, pretended to cry, said she was under stress, that she had never meant to hurt me, that we should find a way to stay in good terms. When I didn't respond, she switched again, said she could sue me, then said she could expose me, then said she could ruin everything I had. None of it worked. I didn't need to win an argument. I didn't need to shout or defend myself. All I had to do was sit there and let her understand what had already happened. She had lost control, not because I fought harder, but because David wasn't blind the way she always believed. Every lie she built was already broken before she even spoke. She knew it. I knew it. There was nothing left for her to do but accept it. I gathered the documents, stood up, and told her this was the last time we would speak. She didn't follow me. She didn't shout. She just stayed frozen in silence, staring at the truth she could no longer rewrite. I walked out of that house without shouting, without slamming doors, and without the kind of revenge people imagine in movies. I left in silence, and for the first time in a long while, the silence did not feel like defeat. It felt like air. I could finally breathe. I didn't look back to check if Stephanie was watching me from a window or pretending nothing had happened. I didn't need to. The look on her face when the truth sank in was enough. She didn't lose the house, the cars, or the money she had already taken control of, but she lost the one thing she held on to the most: control over the story, over me, over the image she built. She could no longer pretend she was the victim or the hero. I wasn't the one who ruined her plans. David was. What he left behind was stronger than anything she tried to destroy, and that truth stayed with me as I got into my car and drove away. I didn't feel triumphant, just steady, like someone who finally reached solid ground after walking in mud for too long. I wasn't carrying anger anymore. I was carrying proof that the person I loved most in the world had seen everything, and he had already answered it for me. With the money David protected in my name, I was able to rent a small place of my own. Nothing fancy, nothing big, just a quiet apartment with enough space for my things and my thoughts. The first night I slept there, I didn't wake up afraid. I didn't wait for footsteps in the hallway or wonder if I was in someone else's way. I unpacked my clothes, set a picture of David on the dresser, and realized how strange it felt to have a key that belonged only to me. I chose the curtains. I chose where the plates went. I didn't need permission to turn on a light or sit in the living room. It felt simple, but simplicity can feel like luxury when you've been pushed aside long enough. I made coffee in the morning and didn't feel watched. I opened the window and didn't expect anyone to tell me I was doing something wrong. I didn't have a huge future planned, but for the first time in months, the future felt like something that belonged to me instead of something I was being allowed to borrow. There was no courtroom victory, no public humiliation, no dramatic ending where the world suddenly recognized who was right and who was wrong. None of that happened. What happened was quieter and more real. The truth came out, and it stayed. Stephanie kept the house, but she lost the version of herself she sold to everyone else. She could no longer pretend she was kind, generous, or helpless. She knew I had the documents. She knew I had the messages. She knew I could expose her if I ever wanted to. And that knowledge was something she could never erase. She didn't apologize. She didn't try to fix anything. She simply had to live with the fact that someone finally saw her with the mask off. That was enough. I didn't need to ruin her life. I just needed to take back my own. And that was exactly what I did the day I turned the key in the door of my new place and walked into a home where no one wished me gone. I still think about David every day. Grief didn't end just because something good finally happened. I miss him in the mornings, when I'm drinking coffee alone, and at night when the quiet makes me wish he could knock on the door and sit beside me. But the sadness is different now. It isn't mixed with humiliation, fear, or the feeling of being unwanted. It's just love, in a form that hurts but doesn't destroy. I read his letter again sometimes, the one he left in the safe, and every time I do, it reminds me that he wasn't blind or weak or fooled. He saw the truth before any of us did, and he chose to protect me even when he knew he wouldn't be here to explain everything face to face. He didn't leave me rich, he left me safe. He didn't leave me powerful, he left me free. That is a kind of love money can't buy and people can't fake. He once told me, more than once actually, "I'll never let you be alone." I used to think those were just words sons say to comfort their mothers, something sweet, but impossible to guarantee. But he meant it. He didn't let me face the world with nothing. He didn't let Stephanie erase me. He didn't let my story end the way she wanted it to end. Even after he was gone, he kept his promise in the only way he could, by leaving me prepared, protected, and able to stand up without anyone's permission. That promise didn't disappear with him. It grew. It turned into the key I used at the bank, the documents I placed on the table in front of her, the lease I signed for my new home, and the strength I feel every time I wake up without asking if I'm allowed to stay. Yes, I carry sadness, and I always will, but now it walks beside dignity instead of shame. I don't have everything I ever wanted, but I finally have what I needed: security, peace, and a life that belongs to me again. No one decides where I live. No one decides when I leave. No one decides how much space I'm allowed to take anymore. I left that house without shouting, and that was the most powerful thing I could have done. I walked away with a quiet victory that didn't need applause. I walked away with my future in my hands, and nobody can take that from me now. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.